Steam locomotives were some of the most powerful machines ever built. They pulled trains that fueled our imagination. They represented vision, collaboration, ingenuity, customer service, and extraordinary human achievement. But in order to get to their destination, it took someone guiding them through a series of switches in order to get to the main line. Just like leaders today, it takes someone directing them down the right path in order to get to their destination. Welcome to Mainline Executive Coaching ACT, which stands for and Cultural Transformation, hosted by Master Certified Intelligent Leadership Executive Coaches Maikel Bailey and Rich Barron, with over 50 years of successful cultural transformation and quantum leadership development between them. Brought to you by Intelligent Leadership Executive Coaching, the world's foremost authority on cultural transformation and intelligent leadership development. Once again, thanks for joining us and enjoy today's show.
Welcome. Thank you for joining us today. This is where you need to be right now. If you're a leader and you're looking to improve your leadership character, your leadership skills and abilities, your abilities to inspire and motivate yourself and those that you lead, this is exactly where you should be right now. I am Maikel Bailey. I'm here with my partner, Rich Barron. We've also got a wonderful guest with us today. This is David Burnell. This is Mainline Executive Coaching ACT, and it is about mainline executive coaching, leadership development. And today we are really honored to have David with us today, a man of many, many talents, much experience in a lot of different areas of leadership. And today we've invited him to come and talk to us about respect. And we know that respect in our last podcast that we did, that it's immensely important to people in the workplace. It is like 18 times more important than anything else for people that are in the workplace as a determiner of success in regards to leaders, but also in terms of the whole culture for everybody. So let's dive right into it. So David, just give us some quick background and then let's get into this matter here. Again, let's reintroduce yourself. You've been with us before, but let's give us that background.
I appreciate that. Thank you. So military veteran, 10 years active duty, United States Air Force, worked in several capacities in the military, a lot with special operations units for many years as a communications guy. Then I got into business and in between that time did a bunch of rescue, 911, dive rescue, water-based, under the ice, all kinds of environments, and still have engaged in that over the years. Along with that, many humanitarian missions in places like Nicaragua, Burma, Costa Rica, Thailand, Japan after the tsunami. I was recovering bodies there. But I've also built and sold 3 businesses. One of them went for a substantial sum of money, and I ran that during the transition to the first sale, and then it flipped again a few years later for the big money. We were heavily diluted at the time, but nevertheless, all the principles of success that were wrapped into that were key to its evolution to the point where it would be attractive to somebody. Yeah, and I think one of the key elements inside of that, the business side, there's a lot of similarities between the rescue side and Maikel, you and I have talked about this in the past. There's a lot of similarities in leadership from the rescue side and the military side, even the bodyguard side. I'm a bodyguard for high-risk areas, and the business side, military, business, rescue, bodyguard work, humanitarian missions. There's a common thread that goes through all of them, and one of the common threads is the word respect.
Why is respect important? Give us your definition. Let's start here. Give us your definition of what respect is.
Well, I think I understand a pretty good definition of it, because candidly, I probably haven't always been good at that as a leader. In my early days as a young CEO of business, out of the military, I was a winner. I wanted to win, and winning was more important to me than anything else, because that's the type A driven, alpha personality that does the things that I've done, that goes into the places that I've gone to, and sometimes alone on some of these missions, with a backpack and a handbag. And so that personality is one that's very independent, very driven, very not me, or I wouldn't be going there. But so with that personality, when I got into business, it was hard for me to balance the needs of the people that I was around and the requirements of winning and succeeding in the mission. And what I think a good definition of respect is letting people have their true voice. And secondly, letting people actually contribute their true value to the organization. If you can remove obstacles and provide tools for people, those two things is leadership. And you know, sometimes people just don't need to be told all the time what to do and how to do it, because toxic leadership does that. And sometimes we want to be the one who's guiding the ship because we're that driven person. And sometimes that's not the best way to do it. The best solutions in the world often, and this isn't just, I read a book about it, those are the ones that come from those people that are in the field level where they touch the customer. They know the answers most of the time. They have solutions. They think about this all the time. It's their livelihood. It's what they do. And sometimes when we're in the tower and we're not connected to the field, and then yet we drive the tactics in the field, we can be disconnected. So I think respect is recognizing that our ability to understand the field, the customer, where the rubber meets the road with the client, can sometimes be skewed by us being involved in finance, in strategic positioning, acquisition of new products, technologies. Those things can sometimes inhibit our ability to be tied to the customer. And I think we all know that, you know, he or she who understands the customer at the end of the day really wins. And your people that are working with you, not only those in your inner circle, but the people on the phones, people greeting people, chipping and weighing boxes, they have a tremendous ability to contribute in ways that can really geometrically explode an organization's growth. And I think that respect is recognizing that and then removing the obstacles and providing the tools for that to take place.
Great. That's insightful. Very
Excellent.
insightful. You've been involved in manufacturing as well, Rich. Give us your idea on how would you define respect?
You know, I want to touch on something that David just mentioned there at the end. And that really is providing people with the tools and the opportunities to really use their voice. A lot of times we look at people's skill set and we determine that their skills aren't really up to what we need as leaders or what we need as an organization. But what is the failure in a lot of ways is, do they truly have the tools to succeed? Have you given them the training? Have you given them the tools? Have you given them the opportunity and the time to learn and to expand in that particular arena that you've got them in? When you pull the rug out from underneath someone too soon, without providing the tools, without providing their opportunity, without giving them a voice, that reflects directly on you, not only as a leader, but as an individual as well. And it reflects poorly on the organization and the organization's vision, if there is one, or their values, if they have those.
Let's take a look. I love what you guys are saying here. And I want to dig just a little bit deeper on this subject of, and you've given us great scenarios, great understanding, great examples of what it is that you're talking about in regards to respect. Here's what I'd like to know. Is it really important in the workplace? And if it is, besides all those operational things that are going on in talent development, all that stuff that goes into what it is that you've been talking about here, beyond that, why is respect really important? Or at some level, do you say, well, it's yes, but not that much? David, do you understand what I'm asking here?
Yeah, I do. There's something I taught my kids since they were little, and there's a difference between love, trust, and respect. And, you know, in the Judeo-Christian world, we are taught to love everybody. And we get confused sometimes and think, well, that means we need to respect and trust everybody. And I've been all over the globe, but that's just not the case. Trust and respect are earned, right? Yet in a business setting, when somebody is entrusted to your care and they're put on payroll and you are the leader, the formal leader, you have a responsibility and an obligation to develop trust with them both ways, right? Your job is to do the things that will help them trust you and respect you. And as we talked about earlier, providing tools, removing obstacles. I mean, how many times do we do that? How many times do you hear that? Now, I used to tell my team, I had a company for 17 years. I used to tell them on our Friday staff meetings, every day, every time, my job is to remove obstacles to your success. And if you don't communicate to me what those are, I can't remove them. And to provide you tools. And if that means a new computer, we'll evaluate that. If that means a better phone system, we'll look at that. A better way to process things, we'll figure that out. And as a result, I had really geometric growth in that company because a lot of the answers would come from those people that were, again, at the grassroots level. So I don't know if that answers your question or not, but I think the baseline of respect is one of those elements that is obviously earned. It's not just granted. And if we as leaders go into our role every day recognizing my job is to earn the respect and trust of the people that are entrusted to my care, phenomenal things can happen in that organization. And they will want to be there and they will do all they can to work extra time. And that's not really the reason we do it, because we don't want to manipulate that behavior, right. But it's what human beings do when they feel like they're trusted and respected. They reciprocate by more effort, by working harder, smarter, and longer, and more accurately, at least most of the time.
That's exactly what it is. That last part that you were addressing there, David, is exactly what it is that I'm looking at in terms of the value of that interaction that takes place in that relationship level of not only developing employees, developing leaders, but at another level, also developing human beings. I mean, Absolutely. We spend a lot of time at work. I mean, there's a lot of time that we put in there, sometimes more than we do at our own homes when we're awake. You know, there's go home, but then you sleep, but then there's how much time are you really around for the family and, you know, friends and all that kind of stuff. So there's a tremendous opportunity for leaders to make this opportunity of development as human beings, and also in developing relationships. Why would that be important? Why would that even matter? Let me turn to Rich here, then get your response. So why is that people value development, not just employee development, you know, something that really is, that makes a difference in people's lives?
You know, as a leader, it's a privilege to be a leader. It truly is. In a lot of ways, you hold that person's career in your hands. And when you do that, not only are you holding their career in your hands, that impacts not only them, but it impacts their family, impacts others around them. And so I think it's very important to value people as individuals. The biggest waste in any organization, and organizations talk about waste all the time, but the biggest waste is truly people's time, their energy, and their talents. And when you respect that, you respect their time. You respect and that can mean time to learn the job, time to learn those skills, time to get accustomed to the team, their talents. What do they truly bring to the table? Here's one of my problems, and this kind of goes along with the hiring issues, is there are so many programs out there that weed out these resumes. Man, they're looking for the right terminology in a resume. And Maikel, you and I have worked with enough people to know that resumes really don't tell who a person is. They could be poorly written. They could be, not really quantifying results or anything like that. But you're missing out on sitting down and having a genuine conversation with somebody that could be a phenomenal member of your team, and valuing that person's talents and their ability to join and add. It goes back to what we talked about before, Maikel, is the difference between employee fit, culture fit, or culture add. How are you hiring? How are you looking at people? Are they going to add to your culture? Do they have the ability to really bring not only you up as a person, you as a leader, you as an organization, but the people around them as well? What kind of legacy are they going to be able to leave if, based on you giving them that opportunity and truly valuing who they are.
Excellent. I like that. It's an interesting thing, gentlemen, when you take a look at people that you've worked with, people that you've led, people that you've trained, and then you follow them once your paths, go in different directions for whatever reason, and to see the arc of their career, how they develop in their jobs and their talents and their capacities to work in other organizations, sometimes even leaving the kind of, as an employee, but actually then starting their own business. What do you, have you had that experience when you've watched other people because of that connection, that interaction that you had with them, and then all of a sudden they just kind of, I don't know, maybe the word blossom, or they bloom, or they just like go to that next level of who they can become? What about that, David?
Oh man, I can't believe you asked that question. Sincerely, it was almost like that was scripted, because I had the most profound experience with a young man who was 21 years old. And when I hired him at this high-tech company, which was a wireless communications company, and I was one of the founders of the company, I was CEO at the time and the chairman of the board. And I needed somebody to be the guy in charge of sales. And he had a background of great relationships with people. Long story short, I kind of groomed him for a year or so as a sales guy, and then made him the director of sales, brought in 4 more sales reps, and he managed them. And eventually, when I left the company after about 4 years or so, I recommended him as the new CEO. And the board of directors was like, seriously? You talk about respect, you talk about trust. We both had that, him and I, at a really, this is after I learned my life lesson, a phenomenal level of when I say mentoring, I don't want to put myself in a position where I'm like mentoring you, but there was a ton of that was happening. I was grooming him, helping answer questions for him. I just kind of got out of his way, and I would add responsibility to him upon responsibility. And I learned that, guess what? When I did that and he took on more, I had less to do. And I personally liked that, because I was running 2 companies at the time. I had my own company and I had this company, and I was running both. And so the board knew this. And so the more I could rely on him out of necessity and his capacity, the more he shined, the more he grew. Long story, at the end of the story, long story short, he ended up leaving that company eventually, as he did get made the CEO against the board's, desires, and did a great job. Brought in some phenomenal deals with the United States Army and US Navy for amplifiers and stuff. And then he went off and started 3 companies on his own, eventually 3, and sold 2 of them that I know for a nice penny, a nice series of a nice payout for him. And so to watch him go from a young guy literally knocking on doors with a wireless network that we had before Wi-Fi was a household term, selling subscriptions because that was our proof of concept, all the way to becoming the vice president of sales, then eventually the president of the company, and then leaving and starting and working to maturity from the ground up, other companies in the same space, was phenomenal to see. It was a really rewarding, and we're in contact to this day. Occasionally, we'll check on each other, and he's just got the entrepreneur bug, and he had all the tools. He had everything. I could see that. And I think a leader needs to do that. I think a leader needs to look at people and project what they look like at the highest levels, and then work, as Rich was saying, to develop them, give them those things that they need, which is arbitrating complex issues, communicating with people effectively, having strong interpersonal skills, negotiation skills, all the things that need to happen. You can impart that to them, and then they will rise to their highest level of competence. And sometimes there's no ceiling on that. For this specific young man, there's no ceiling on that. He way outperformed my life in what he's done, and I'm glad to see that. I think that's important that we rejoice in that.
And David, I gotta point something out here, and I want to ask you this question, because you hit something on the head that for me really strikes a tone. And you said you taught him, you mentored him, then got out of his way.
Oh, big time. Yeah,
got out of his way. And you know what? That is viewed by a lot of people as a weakness for leaders. What are you doing? You're not managing those people. You're not hovering over them. What are you doing?
Yeah.
But that's such an important thing, to let people grow and give them that opportunity. And I that's one of the big philosophies I have. Teach them, mentor them, and get out of their way. And, even if you're there with them, let them kind of take the reins a little bit.
I think that's profound, Rich. And I think one of the hardest things for entrepreneurs, if there's entrepreneurs listening to this, one of the hardest things is to begin to let go of some of the core functions of a business that you have nurtured as your baby, from the garage to the first warehouse to whatever you look like now. And that's a very difficult thing to do. But the more I've done it, the more I want to do it quicker. Because we only have so much capacity, and you get tired as you get older. And one of the blessings of that is my free time increases, and things tend to run better when I kind of got out of the way at times. But there's one element that leaders need to remember. I think this is key too, though. They need to remember that a lot of the times the secret sauce of the company is the style, the culture that's been created, and the vision that the founder or the entrepreneur has created. And that can be maintained while you still take a secondary seat. You can insert yourself and do that really great leadership principle, which is really strong feedback in brief and short doses, right? Boom, done, move out of the way. And then they got the message, you don't have to pound it into them. You just have to teach them, mentor them, help them understand. We might not want to do it that way. We might want to consider it this way. What do you think? And then let them have some ownership over that decision. But never forget that you're on the hook as the fiduciary member of that company to make sure that it succeeds, right?
Let's do this. That's great, guys. Thanks. We brought a lot of value into our discussion about giving people respect, working with them, teaching them, offering it, encouraging it, all that kind of stuff. Just great payoffs, dividends for everyone. So why is it so difficult for some leaders, or maybe many leaders at different times in different areas of the business, to actually reach out and get that conversation, get that connection going, and engender and grow, nurture respect? Why is that so doggone difficult?
Well, there's conflict wrapped around it. And people avoid conflict. The distinguishing marks of great leadership is different than management, right? And this is one of those Sunday school answers, right? And in the books of leadership, good managers see the problem. Great leaders address the problem. And sometimes addressing the problem is not a negative thing. It's, doing the things we've already talked about earlier. So
something that you both shared with me was this idea of getting out of the way. I like that a lot. I believe in that as well. Get them to a point and then just get out of the way and let them fly. There's another part of that, I think, that's difficult, and you were just addressing it a minute ago here, Dave, and that is the courage to speak up. I think there's something about being able to get out of your own comfort zone, out of your own self, getting out of your own way of what it is that you may be doing to derail those conversations, those relationships, that development, of the individuals and the teams and the company itself. It takes a lot of honesty, and it takes a lot of courage to do that stuff. You've been, David, in a lot of places, a lot of situations where there's been a real demand on courage and on taking action. What is it you have to do to get out of that self-protecting, egotistical kind of mode, whatever it might be? And you told us you've learned some tough lessons in life, whether it's, in the battlefield or rescue operations or in businesses. What is it that you had to say to yourself at times, just to knock that off and do something different in order to get that respect going?
It's a little easier to articulate the problem and the answer in the 911 world, in dynamic traumatic rescues, and in military operations, or even humanitarian missions, like in a place called Burma, which is hostile and denied territory, and they don't want you there. Nicaragua, places like that. Necessity to do the right thing trumps ego and me feeling good about, having this real collaborative relationship. And so you learn to depend on people's communication, which is short, concise, brief, concise, and to the point, right? You learn in those environments that that's how you communicate. And if it's not honest, you could die. So you learn that rule inside that environment if you're a veteran of it. When I went to Burma, I went with a guy I never met before, and he was a Green Beret for 40 years. He was a physician's assistant, and we were teaching a medical program to the Korean Army. It was the 4th phase of this program, and it was in Burma, across from a river out of Thailand. And we had never met before. And I knew he was alpha dog when I met him in Thailand. I knew who was in charge, and I'm that driven guy, but I had no problem. And we would communicate in that very style. It would be no frills, no thrills. But in business, it's different. It's harder, right? It's more difficult. And there's 2 things I want to say about this. First, our job is to create an environment where people feel comfortable in communicating their truth. And that's hard to do. And I had not been good at that often. I would say, I need your feedback. Tell me what you think. But because of the dynamic leadership and the intense personality, people would not want to do that. Even though I said, I want to hear what you have to say. I need your feedback. And so that's a very difficult thing as a leader, to foster an environment where they feel comfortable in communicating their truth without repercussions, when you have a very strong dynamic personality. So I think the way to accomplish that is going to sound kind of funny in the business world, but there's several philosophies out in, like The Greatest Salesman in the World, the Og Mandino book. When we enter a room, to fill our heart with love. And when we fill our heart with love and we enter the room, all the pressure of the P&L and the balance sheet and the stuff didn't show up from overseas, and it's in customs and they won't release it until we put the labels on it. All these things become secondary to, now I'm present with these people. And my role now is to lift them, love them, listen to them, learn from them, and develop cohesion to the point where I will get the most accurate, honest truth from them. And when that happens, and that's happened several times in my business life, it's a self-actualization moment for everybody that's there. When you hear somebody contribute and then you take action on what they said, I mean, I don't think there's a paycheck that could compensate that would be more valuable. Although money talks and everything else walks to employees, they want to be compensated. And I think that that's important too. But there's something about being heard, respected, and then watching the fruits of their risk communication. I'm going to say something out loud and see if it's actually received. And you don't have to pick every idea and implement it. Honest feedback is important too. Hey, that's a good idea. That's a good thought. Thank you. Dale Carnegie, you've given me a lot to think about. Let's consider that. Write it on the board. And that way they're part of the program, but you might not pick it at the end of the day. I think that, Maikel, is the essence of the difference between great leaders and leaders that don't have the respect of their people. Is that one piece where they are not able to cross that chasm, and it's hard. It takes work, effort, focus, and humility.
I like what you did there. We were talking about leaders giving respect. We were talking about that, and you brought it around to us very nicely, that they respect the leader.
Yes.
That's a nice cycle. Very nice. Thank you. What are your thoughts on that, Rich?
Phenomenal. I could listen to David all day. You know, he's got such a good grasp of this and what this is experience. And I gotta ask you, David, you've been in a lot of situations, and we talked about this in the past, where you've needed to be tough. You needed to sometimes that leadership style needed to be a little bit tougher in order to build that love and that trust and that respect. How do you determine the times that are best suited for that versus maybe a different situation where that's not really called for? You mentioned, let me point this out. You mentioned one time about working in South Dakota, right?
Mm-hmm.
And and this individual that you had to work with, how do you determine building that trust and that love through a little bit harsher environment versus maybe business?
Yeah. So I mentioned earlier, if you have to communicate with somebody some hard information and give them some feedback that they're probably not going to want to hear, short, brief, concise, to the point.
Okay.
Don't beat the horse to death. That's an important characteristic. And because everyone, is going to feel the information. Most people are going to feel it, and you don't need to belabor it. And then you spend more time on the attributes, the contributing characteristics that individual has. But at the end of the day, we got to stop. So there was a young man I had working for me one time, and there was a lot of the touchy feely. It was really important to him. So you remember that model, the life cycle theory of leadership, 1970s. It was brought out, and it had quadrants: high relationship, low task; low relationship, high task, and these quadrants. Well, some people are really high relationship and low task. They need a high relationship to do the lowest tasks. Some people are very independent and can do complex tasks, and they don't really want to talk to the boss. They just want you to leave them alone. And I think in order to answer your question, how do you do this? You have to know where that person resides. Do they really want that? And sometimes if you're a smart leader, you might send John, who's my people person, to talk to the person who's low relationship, because he has an ability to sit back and put him at ease and talk to him. I'm not always the right grenade to throw into the room. Bad analogy. I'm not. Sometimes I'm the right one. Sometimes I'm the wrong one. And a smart leader is going to know that, right? I would ask John oftentimes, would you go talk to so-and-so? And this is what I'd like to accomplish in the conversation. Can you find a way to bridge that? And that also works. I think we're not alone. We have a lot of tools at our disposal on our tool belt, and those tools are other leaders or peers. And peers are difficult. You don't really often want to do that. You want to keep it clean. But it's definitely a harder challenge in business than it is in those other intense environments. But it's gonna prove itself if you're successful or not. You're gonna learn it through attrition. How many people stay for the long haul? How long are they there? Do you have a revolving door? And if you have a revolving door, you've got problems. And my experience is most of us are blind to the issues in our businesses. Businesses have their own mental health, just like people do. And sometimes we're just blind to why there's a revolving door, and we don't think it's us, and we're sitting at the top of the organization, and we're not humble enough to look intently at what needs to change and strong enough to make those changes. So the last thing I want to say about this, I think this is really key. So I go to the gym every morning, and I have a family at the gym, and oftentimes I'll have conversations with people about life issues, nothing really deep and secret and dark, but we'll talk about how's it going. Good, cool. And I'll find that because there's a collaborative friendship and it's based upon a safe environment, that there are many wonderful experiences that are happening where I am feeling like I was given something from them in my life, and they might feel they were given something from me. And that sounds kind of funny. I know, like kumbaya, let's sing it in a circle. But there's an element inside of here that if we can foster that in business, and you can let your people know that you're approachable and that there's a way to connect with you. I mean, some people might need to put an information box and let them put a secret note in there because they're not that interpersonal. I don't know if that's the answer or not. I don't think that's the best way, but that might be a way to get honest feedback, right? I had one guy I knew, when he walked through the office, he would put a ball cap on if he was unapproachable. And if his ball cap was off, you could talk to him at any time. He was the CEO of the company, and that was the way he ran things. He was at a West Coast company, and I was in the corporate staff for the headquarters. I would travel around and help these businesses. And that's what he did. Did it work? His people loved him, man. They loved that guy. They knew he was the fire-breathing dragon when that hat was on, and he was dealing with a significant issue. And when it was off, you could talk to him about anything. He had created a culture where people knew when they could approach him, even with bad news.
That's tremendous. Let's kind of wrap this up. Thank you, David. And I can't thank you enough. I'm very appreciative of what you've done, conversation you've got going here. So let's maybe just give these folks a lot of information here, a lot of stuff we've given them. Hopefully it's inspiring. Hopefully it's brought some new ideas to them. How would you give them? I'm going to ask each of us to do this. And Rich, you start, then we'll go to David, and then I'll just kind of wrap it up here. What are the essential things of, in your mind, in your experience of, how do I, as that leader, looking at my organization or my team, what might I really consider, things that I could focus on specifically, start real simple, that I could do to start changing my ability to create a greater culture, relationship, or respect?
I got to tell you, there's a way you can tell personally if things are going well. And I've seen this in business in the past. And the way this works is respect is a trickle down issue. If the people around you feel open and that they can talk to you and they respect you, that trickles down the ladder, and it impacts every part of the business. It impacts quality, impacts efficiency, impacts the way people, your retention, and inevitably it's going to impact your customers. When you respect your employees and you understand that and you truly can watch how this works throughout your organization, it impacts every part of it. Attrition, customer retention, quality. It impacts every part of your organization. And that's important to understand. In order to do that, it starts with you. Am I open? Am I humble? Can my people actually come and talk to me? Am I truly listening and helping them get to their best? Somebody helped us get our best. Are we helping them get to theirs?
That's excellent. Thank you so much. Thank you, Rich. David.
Inventory of self, first and foremost. Assess your mood, your attitude. What is it? Be honest with yourself in this. The inventory has to be brutally honest. Your personal inventory of yourself. Second is your communication style. What does it look like? What does it feel like to talk to you? Is it warm and fuzzy? Is it cold and prickly? Is it in between? Do you pull out the right one at the right time? Or are you always cold and prickly? Thirdly, inside of that, do you provide tools and remove obstacles? That's a pretty easy yes or no. Do you know what those tools and obstacles are? And if you don't, you need to do number 2, which is develop leaders inside the building. And the leaders inside the building could be the ones answering the phones. It could be your accountant. It could be anybody. It doesn't have to be a formal leadership role. And those leaders are the ones who are experts in their subject matters. And as you develop those leaders, it goes down to the third point, which is as you look at your role as a leader, fill your heart with love for the people that have committed to be there in your organization. Now, there's a really interesting challenge inside of that. Sometimes people don't want to let people go if they're the wrong fit. When I went to President's School for Icon Office Solutions, they taught us there's 3 things to hire people under. Can they do the job? Will they do the job? And are they a team fit? And as a good leader, you can't be afraid to use those 3 metrics often as you progress with these people. And that doesn't mean you have a hatchet mentality where you're just chopping people. You develop them into those roles, like Rich said earlier, right? You provide leadership to develop them. But don't be afraid to make those changes as they need to be made. I have been slow in doing that to the point where I carried people a long time in some cases. Sounds opposite of what I said earlier, but that's also true. I had a hard time making changes where changes need to be. The last thing I would say is there is the right person in the wrong job or the right person in the right job, always. I was taught that by a mentor of mine. Right person, wrong job, right person, right job. So everybody's the right person for some job. They just might not be the right person for that job. And I think as you identify that, you're going to create organizations that have geometric growth and are there for a very long time, and your revolving door is going to slow down a little bit. People will feel actualized.
Yeah, taking the time to do that is actually a sign of respect.
It is respect.
Yeah. Okay. Excellent. My thoughts are just going to be very simple, and that's this. the term or the word value comes to my mind. Take the time to value the people that you're talking to one at a time. Value the conversations. Value their input, their ideas. Value the time that you have at this particular time. This will not last forever. Everything passes, everything moves on. Value that time. Value the organization that you're working in and the team that you're working in. You can value these individuals, the time, the conversations, where you have some sort of leadership or stewardship, whether it's small or it's big. Your brain will move in a direction to find how to make this work, because it will all come together in the valuing. Leaders who do not respect others have not learned the ability to value each person, the time, their contributions, their ideas, their efforts. They don't value how the team works. They don't value how the organization works and the value of that mission. Focus on the value and put your heart, your mind, your strength into it. You'll figure it out. So, excellent conversation, gentlemen. Thank you so much. David, if they want to get a hold of you and see what it is that you're doing in your business now, what do they do? You're on mute.
You're on mute, David.
You're on mute. You're still on mute, David.
Sorry about that.
There you go.
Just
That's
in
the
case
most
you were
brilliant
stuck
thing
on
that you said. We missed it all.
It's www.davidburnell.com. DAVIDBURNELL.com. Thank you.
All right, outstanding. Thank you. Rich, they want to get a hold of us.
Executive Leaders Act, ILEC.com. And they can go there. There's assessments on there they can take to measure their own personal strengths as a leader. They can reach out to us via email, phone, whatever. But do it. Let's talk about this. If you have a comment about today's show, let's talk about it. Let's break that down.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you so very much. All right, all the best. Sign off for now.
Cheers.
All righty. Take care, everyone. We'll see you next time.
With all of the issues facing organizations today, leadership development and cultural transformation are needed more than ever. Go to our website, Executive Leaders Act, ILEC.com. Book some time with us. Let's sit down and talk and get you on the path to success. This podcast was brought to you by Intelligent Leadership Executive Coaching, ILEC, the world's foremost authority on leadership development and cultural transformation. Once again, for Mainline Executive Coaching ACT, this is Rich Barron and Maikel Bailey. Thank you for joining us, and take care.